Welcome to Landlord Diaries, where we talk about midterm rentals and the opportunities behind them. We'll share landlord stories, talk about maximizing investment potential, and discuss how to live the very best landlord life. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Furnished Finder, the place for everything midterm rentals. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content.
Hello, my real estate enthusiasts. This is your host, Kelly Bailey, with a handful of midterm rentals in the Austin, Texas area. And we are so thankful that all of you are listening in. I've got my co-host with us today and every other day, Katie Lyon. She is our Furnished Finder Marketing Director. And in today's episode, we travel all the way to Fort Worth, Texas. What did you think about today's episode, Katie?
This episode was so cool. Things went a little bit differently this time. The property was built from the ground up and it was paid off within 5 years, which both things I think are just so interesting and take a lot of intentional thought and practice. And it was really, really great to hear how our guest put that practice into play and made it all come to reality.
Yes. And she also adds a few twists about holistic hosting, how to host with a holistic lifestyle. It's pretty cool. So enjoy the episode. Amanda, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you so much for joining us. I think it's going to be such a helpful episode for all of our fellow landlords, and we all have great stories to tell. So let's jump into question one, which is you have two rentals. So why don't you give the audience a breakdown of how your rentals work and just make them feel like they're in your home or in your space.
All right. Well, we live in a 26-ish hundred, I think, square foot house on an acre. About the back half of the acre is in flood zone. So for all practical purposes, we are on a very long tract of about a half of an acre. We built a guest house back there in 2019 before everything got crazy expensive. And so we've rented that out for, I guess, what is that, 2-3 years? I don't know. Can't do the math off the top of my head. And then we have we have a wing in our hihouse also that we've rented out for, I think, 4 or 5 years now. So we, the way our house is set up, it's all of our living space is on this side of the house. Theirs is over here, and we're separated by the kitchen, dining, and living. So there's a very nice separation between our spaces, which has really made it work well. So
Good. I love that. So I did notice that the Hideaway in the Oaks is on Furnished Finder, but currently I don't see the wing in your home on Furnished Finder. So where are you marketing that portion of your furnished rentals, and how does the marketing work for both?
Well, that's a little bit of a interesting. We've done just word of mouth with friends, just sharing on my personal Facebook.
Oh, okay.
And we've also listed it on Craigslist, which I know is like, wow,
Oh.
we'll still do that. Interestingly, people do still do that. So just kind of a hodgepodge of those few kind of methods with the guest house. Most people, we prefer to stay for a year in our wing. And most of the people on Furnished Finder tend to be wanting something shorter term, more for 3 months. Although we have found longer term people on Furnished Finder of late, which has been really great. So our current guy that just moved in is going to be with us for a year, and he's a traveling orthopedic surgeon. So yes,
very cool.
That's awesome.
And I have to give you a shout out. I love the title, Hideaway in the Oaks, but I've actually seen it on Furnish Finder as well, and wow, y'all have done such a great job. It looks like this really beautiful modern style guest house with beautiful furnishings on the inside. You've just done a great job, so keep it up.
Well, next time you're in Fort Worth, you'll have to come see it in person.
Oh yes, that'd be cool. That would be cool.
Texas is so big, I don't even know how far Fort Worth is from Austin. It's just, in my mind, Texas is just giant and everyone thinks everything's close and nothing's actually close.
It's about 2.5.
Okay, so that's not bad.
No, it's not.
In the Hideaway in the Oaks, it really is that space before we built it, when we moved in 11 years ago, was just complete overgrowth of shrubs and vines, and my husband has really hacked it down to where you can now go back there and not get all kinds of things on your clothes. But we just love how we were able to still keep so many of the trees, and there's a lot of big trees back there, a lot of little trees that are growing up that'll be big, and we kind of have to warn people it's a little bit of a trek to get back there. We don't have a perfect sidewalk yet, so we usually offer the dolly, and so for being as in the city as it is, people definitely feel in the country, which is fun that we can offer that.
Right.
It is. It's rare.
Yeah.
So do you share a kitchen and living space with the wing of your house that you rent out then?
We do. We really
Okay.
we see them coming into our home as becoming kind of part of our family. We do set a lot of really clear expectations, which is to protect both parties, but it's very much this is our space, which includes the guest and the wing.
Right.
Some of I think we're on our fourth now, our fourth or fifth renter, but everyone cooks different amounts and different times. So sometimes it feels like one big party in the kitchen, and then other times it's like, do you ever eat? Because I never see you in the kitchen. So, but it's been
Now what made you decide to rent out a part of your house? Like, how did you come to that decision? Because I know that can be a big step for, especially when you have a family and you have littler ones of any age. How did you guys come about that decision, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, and we've been doing it long enough. So our kids, just to preface, are now 9, 12, and 14. And we started when I think Summer was 5. So it's been about 5 years. So 5, 7, 9. So thankfully they were, in a sense, young enough that it wasn't super weird, and they didn't know that most people don't do this.
Right.
So it wasn't too odd of a transition for them. But our house, it has 3 bathrooms and 4 bedrooms plus 1 that could be a bedroom. So it just felt like so much space, and we tend to be of the belief of kids it's beneficial for them to sleep together, just to learn to share space and work on that selfishness tendency. So we wanted to do that anyway, and then we just had this space that was basically just sitting there empty in between grandparents coming and visiting. We kind of, I talked to a friend who does rentals just with her little space in her house, and it just kind of got me thinking, like, that could be easy residual income that's on a space that's just sitting there. So we just kind of dabbled in and looked around, and decided to go for it. We're always kind of looking for random sources of income. So if it,
I mean, it's smart though, especially if you're not using that space, right? I think the only hurdle a lot of people have to get over is sharing that common space. But I think you're right, especially for kids and everyone. It can't teach you that, like, you know, you need to have manners even when you're in your own house, and there's a lot of life lessons that can come with that too. I know
Mhm.
in my house, our basement, we have an extra guest room that, like you said, only gets used if we have an actual like out of town guest. And we have a bar that has a full size fridge. It's got a dishwasher. It's got, I mean, it could be the only thing it's lacking is a range, right? But like,
Yeah.
I'm like, man,
You could
that
totally
it
turn that.
really is just like, it really is just like a source of income that's sitting there. It's just that one hurdle.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really interesting. So who have you had as tenants so far in your own
In the
house?
house has been the first one is she's a young 30-ish gal who's a missionary in Africa, and she was
Oh, wow.
over back in the States just doing her support raising. And in fact, she's coming back in a year, and we've kept in contact with all of these guests, our roommates, and she's hoping to come back and live with us again when she comes stateside next year. So it's just fun to keep up those relationships. But anyway, she was one. It was real fun for her to. She did some cooking with Summer, who was at that point like 4-ish, 5-ish, and made
Aw.
kind of African dishes with them. And then another roommate is from Bulgaria, or was from Bulgaria, and so it was kind of fun to kind of hear about her growing up years and just being a
Mm-hmm.
different experience than what our kids are used to, what we're used to. And let's see, the third one, she actually moved from California to work at where we now go to school, a classical charter school that I had never heard of. And she just kept talking about it. And it was kind of during the 2020 summer where we're all reevaluating life. And we ended up going to that school thanks to her sharing about it. So it's just been really like the Lord has blessed us through these people that live with us in so many ways that we may never know, and we just are so grateful for those
Mhm.
relationships.
That's a great way to put it. And I think you have this experience in such a way that others are nervous about. They don't want to take that next step. So for those that are thinking about it, what would be like Katie? Sounds like Katie's wheels are turning. What would be your advice for someone looking to potentially start renting out portions of their home with kids or just just them?
There's so many. I would say for one, it depends on your home layout. It may not be a perfect home layout for everybody, depending on, for us, it really worked out because that wing is so separate. They can have that sense of
Mm-hmm.
privacy.
Mhm.
And I didn't mention, so there's between their bedroom and bathroom and the living space, there's a hallway and a pocket door, just giving a little bit extra privacy for them and a little
Mm-hmm.
quietness. And then they're on the side of the garage, so they have a door that goes to the garage, so they're able to come and go
Hmm.
through the garage if they don't really want to be seen or see, which happens. A lot of our
Mhm.
people, and we kind of talked about this before, but I try to pick a very specific personality type to live with us,
Mm.
and that personality
Mhm.
type tends to be on the introverted side. They like kids, that's important, but they do have more of a tendency to want to be alone than partying with
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mhm.
And so that works out
Mm.
really well for them to have that quiet entrance when they need that alone time. So looking at the formatting of
Right.
the house is really important. If all bedrooms and
Mhm.
bathrooms are on the same side of the house, I think that'd be
That's
weird. I'm
hard.
not sure I'd want to,
Right.
wake see this person. Um, so that's something.
Mhm.
So for Katie's, that's a totally separate space. I'd wonder if you have
Right.
an interest to and from the basement so they could come and go
Mm-hmm.
without if they wanted to, or And hot plates were great.
It's good advice.
So, I mean, I feel like it sounds like there's a good balance of logistical things to consider and then also identifying, okay, what type of person would mesh well with our family,
Yeah.
given the fact that it's going to be unavoidable that they mesh to some degree. So I think those are some really good things, for people out there to think of because, yeah, you're right.
And I think setting up front, like that we want them to be a part of our family. Like we love to play games and
Right.
we would love you to play the games with us. And we watch family movie nights on Fridays and we would love for you to join us if you want to, they obviously
Right.
sometimes they don't. And some roommates have done it more than others. And we
Right.
just really cherish those. They kind of become like an aunt. And so setting
Right.
expectations up front that like we're not just looking for a money income source.
Right.
We're looking for a
Sure.
relationship. So
Yeah.
yeah. And something
Love
else
it.
I would say to consider is the husband. If it's in our stance, Adam tends to be much more on the introverted side. I tend to be a bit more on the relational side, and he works all day. Obviously, I'm here at the house, and it's actually really great. It's like I get both worlds. I get a little of my like college roommate world with my grown-up husband family world, and having that girl at home to talk to in the middle of the day, with an understanding of like, okay, we're done. Bye.
Right.
So it's just a really nice balance of having that girl relational time with the family life, and Adam's okay with
That's
that.
awesome.
He's not really he's not super extroverted, and he's definitely not a ladies' man. And in fact, some of their roommates have been like, "Does he like me? Because I feel like he doesn't like me." And I'm like, "It's not you. He just really likes to keep that boundary just to
Right.
protect that space and be wise." So anyway.
You have really thought through all of this. I feel like you're a left brain person. Are you left brain or right brain?
I don't know. I'm analytical. So does that make me left brain?
I think so. Yes. I feel like you're left brain,
Love it.
but I'm definitely right brain. More of the ideas. So, okay, your Furnish Finder landlord profile page. It says, great job, by the way. You have done a phenomenal job making sure, and we're going to touch on this later. But you get your 5-star reviews. Your picture looks great. Your write up looks great. But one of the things you said that's fun to discuss is that you love reading a good book and playing games with your family. So, for those looking for a new family game, what is your favorite? And then after that, are there any good reads that have impacted your property investment strategy or your hosting style?
You're putting me on the spot. My current
I did.
my current favorite game is Quirkle. Have you heard of Quirkle?
Yes, my sister-in-law has it, but I don't think I've played it yet.
It's I really like it. The boys are kind of resisting, so usually it's me and Summer and Adam that play together. But I really love it. It's just a really quick in and out game. It doesn't take a lot of setup like Catan or Ticket to Ride, that you can just pull the bag out and play. I will say though, my boys' current favorite with Adam is a game called Bang. Have you heard of Bang?
Bang. No, these are fun. We'll have to check them out, Katie.
We
It comes in
will.
like a shaped container, and it's very like Wild West, and it's a card game.
Oh, cute.
I don't like it because it's way too many like deep. I don't like learning new games.
Right. Too many rules.
Too many details. But those are two fun ones that our family's enjoying right now. Quirkle and
Good.
and Bang.
And then a book that has impacted your real estate investment options or just your hosting style. If you have one. If not, then we'll move on.
Yeah, I'm going to pull this one out of thin air. I'm not sure it's going to fit the question. quickly, but I really love a
I'm
book
sure it will.
called The Obstacle's the Way by Ryan Holiday, I think is the book. And it's all about the Socratic, kind of Socrates thinking and thinking of obstacles as opportunities, and not just an opportunity, but like the blessing in life wouldn't have happened had this obstacle not occurred. And so just in a situation with having being, chafing with people, having that if someone has a bad experience, if they, which has happened, instead of getting real down about it and just thinking, man, it's over, and exploding the negativity of it, just looking at it as an opportunity, like, wow, what a great opportunity that this occurred. I'm going to really nip it in the bud for next time so it doesn't happen again, or just a chance to work through and develop some of our interpersonal skills of communication and expectation setting. We've really had a lot of just really kind of chafing, I guess, especially more so with the housemate than the people in the back. But even still then, having to have hard conversations and just framing that from a perspective of this is an amazing opportunity to be leaned into and not shied away from. That has really helped kind of.
I love
So
that.
tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us about one time where you had, a conflict with a housemate. Obviously, like you said, like the people in the back that are in the separate unit, you might have different issues with them, right? But you're not going to have like you left your dirty dishes out. Like it's different. But what is an instance that stands out in your mind where, it really was something that maybe did get you guys down at first or caught you off guard and gave you a chance to use that, put that practice into play? Because I think that's a lesson for not only landlords and property owners, but everyone who's taking on a new challenge, right? Whether the challenge is finding a new property, buying it, renting it, or anything in life, really, like we're all going to face those times. And I think having that perspective can help everyone get through it a lot.
I have a lot of what I call awkward conversations with our housemate, and one of them, and I do not enjoy them, but I lean into them. And one was, so we haven't touched on this, but we do chemical-free living in our house. We've had a lot of health issues in the past that's kind of put us down that rabbit hole. And so we've learned through the first guinea pig roommates how to do it. And one of those kind of learning opportunities was they were showering one night, and usually they tend to keep their pocket door closed, but it was open, and they used a shampoo that was just very fragranced, and we're a fragrance-free home, and we can talk more about that, what that looks like, which has been probably one of the most difficult things we've had to figure out. But anyway, her shampoo just made my entire dining room smell very, very fragrant, strong, fake fragrance strong. And my home, just, I feel like there's so much out there in the world. Like my home is my sanctuary. It is my safe space. And so foreign smells just feel, I know it sounds strange, but like an attack. It's like, no, this is my safe space. I just felt like her shampoo attacked my home, and it went away and it was fine, but I had to have a conversation. And so, hey, I noticed. So just leaning into that, and we learned through that my definition of fragrance free does not necessarily match other people's definition of fragrance free. And so through that, I've learned, and I did this new thing with our current lady, and it really has been helpful where when they move in, they understand, like I'm very detailed. You saw the information on my Furnish Finder listing. Like I set expectations, they know, but it's still like, what do you mean by fragrance free?
Right.
And so they know that coming in, but we really have to know. And so I go through and smell all of their products, and I say no, yes, no, 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 yes. That's about the ratio. Things are so fragranced, whether it's shampoo, conditioner, hairspray, perfume, body spray. People are just so used to, these sprays from Bath and Body Works or wherever, and they never thought twice about it. So it's an opportunity to
Right.
share,
Right.
health concept with them. But it is kind of, our products are very personal to us, we have such a strong connection to scent. And so that's kind of a challenge. Our current lady, she's used the same Bath and Body Works smell for probably like 20 years. Like, it is
Oh, wow.
a part of her.
Oh,
And so that was really hard to be like, no. So that's something we've learned, is just like really being super crazy clear up front to prevent
Right.
those shampoo moments.
Now,
and
has
it's been
anyone
going-
ever taken that the wrong way and like gotten almost offended, or have you ever had anything, or has everyone been fairly understanding because you do set those expectations?
They've been very understanding.
Good.
We usually have face to face before we decide yes or no, and just to kind of get a feel for them. And that's their chance
Right.
to like ask your questions, clarify. I'm going to clarify.
Right.
People's laundry soap is super personal to them, I've learned. And so, saying you have to use mine is really
Right.
like, I feel like it's a violation, but at the same time, that's,
Right. That's
it's
what it
our
is.
home, our rules. So, and everybody's been great. I'm very grateful that there's and people out there to say yes.
I think this is a great time to circle back to, and we've transitioned into the landlord logistics side now, with the meat of what we wanted to discuss today about your holistic health choices. So why don't you tell everyone the story of why you switched to, fragrance-free style living, back however many years ago?
Well, let's see. So when Dawson, who's 12, when he was 9 months, he had his normal doctor's visit, and he had the shot that just, I don't know what it did in his body, but it triggered something and just put him down, kind of a down spiral of loss of health. And so he went into, basically became a whole different child. It's I can't think about it too much or I'll start crying. But all the things the
Okay.
pediatrician was suggesting to help fix it were just perpetuating the problem. And so at one point, things like his eczema, he'd never really had eczema, and it just took over his entire body. And the solution from the pediatrician was
Aw.
a bleach bath. And of course, I did that because that's, what you do. And so at some point, though, it's like, okay, wait a minute, like, what's causing this? And what
Right.
can I do to get it back, get his health back? And so it just sent me down the, the Google rabbit hole of things like food affects your health. Like, for real, I had no idea. I was just that disconnected with healthcare, the healthcare of our family. So went down that and learned about chemicals and how they affect, your respiratory system, your hormonal system, your just everything. They really wreck. They can really wreck a body. So, and one of Dawson's symptoms he developed was respiratory, just asthma. And so that's when I really became like, our home is our sanctuary. Like, I can't restrict what he gets out there, but I can restrict what we do in our home. So it just started looking into lotions and, food, of course, but lotions and soaps and laundry detergents and, even like, what do you spray your cutting board with? Because you're going to be eating off of it and ingesting that kind of substance. So that's kind of what sent us down. And now my husband jokes that you are not the woman I married. I used to love Dr. Pepper. all the goodies, Sonic. But anyway, so
How has it changed your food choices?
I would say ignorance is bliss. The less you can know, the more you can enjoy. And so I really can't enjoy fast food restaurants anymore. I know too much about where the meat comes from, or what's sprayed on the vegetables, and it's really kind of sad. I kind of just long for heaven when we don't have to worry about these things and you can eat whatever you want and it's all good.
Good
So
perspective.
that's
Right.
it's really taken kind of the joy out of eating a little bit for me, which is unfortunate. But I'm learning to find alternatives, and they're really great. Fort Worth is a really holistic, friendly city, so there's lots of great options.
Good.
All right, so I'm going to circle back to the ADU, the additional unit that you have on your property. And I am very interested to hear the story of how you guys decided to go down that route, how you decided to build, what kind of lined up in your life that said, like, okay, let's take on this. Right. And then kind of just the story of how you got started. Did you find a contractor? Did you, how did that all come about from the point of, hey, I have an idea, to, okay, this is move-in ready?
We've wanted a guest house for a long time. We actually would love to buy land in Oklahoma and have a cabin. So those two dreams kind of intertwine with each other. Our family thinks we're a little bit crazy dreamers, but we've longed for that for a long time. And it just wasn't the right timing with, the paying off of the house, our current house, and all the things that have to line up. But at one point, I think it was maybe 2017, we got a wild hair idea to go live in an apartment, like a 2-2 apartment, and rent out our house to save money for, I don't know why, just for the adventure of it. Adam is a police officer, so there's this thing called courtesy officers, to where you can live in an apartment and for free, and they just do off-duty kind of security. So that was an idea of a way to live in a luxury apartment for almost free, and it would have been like a 2-2. We did not get picked, and I think it's because the children. These fancy apartments, some things do not want little munchkins running around their pool. So we did not get picked for 3. We tried for 3 luxury apartments. So, but that kind of planted the idea of, like, okay, what's next? And the money lined up just right at that point. So that would have been 2017, 2018. So we started dreaming in 2018, and it really takes a while to take dreams to reality. Like you said, finding a contractor that you trust. And I will say that is a big deal. Don't just go with the lowest price, because we've had some issues since it was built, and our contractor went to bat for us and really fought for us to have the situation righted that was wronged by the roofing and the air conditioning people. And those are his guys. So, like, his name's attached to it. And he really went to bat. So it's really important who you choose to be your contractor. They're not just, a project manager. They are your advocate for any issues after the build's done. So we found him. We went to church, a small group with him from church, and so we knew his integrity, and I knew his personality. I knew that he is extremely detailed, very organized, and from what he shared, he really likes to keep things moving very efficiently. And so it was a very rare occasion that, and granted, this was before 2020, but it was a very rare occasion that it sat without work being done on it. So it got done as quickly as it could have gotten done. And the timeline has kind of gone fuzzy in my head, but it was finished, I think, like October 2019. So
okay,
that was a really
right before it all.
Yes.
Right
Offered
before
well.
like.
Yeah. So I can't remember some of the other questions you had asked. How it lined up.
That's the gist of it. So I think, when you guys had this dream and you had this vision in mind, was it that you wanted to create that additional income to pay off your house sooner? Was it that you wanted the additional income, or equity? Like, what was, the dream was obviously to have a guest house, but like, what was your purpose there? What was, the engine that's moving the boat?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just to have another option for income source. Eventually,
Okay.
take out a mortgage. So we were able
Right.
to put 25,000 down, and then we took a mortgage for 107. Our contractor was really great and let us do some things ourselves, which helps save some money.
That's nice.
But the goal is to pay that off as quickly as possible, and we just paid it off
Right.
last month.
Oh, nice.
So
Congratulations.
thanks. Yeah, to get it paid off is, we've just been dumping every
Right.
Uncle Sam check, every extra dollar we could into it, along with
Right.
the money from the housemate. But
So now it truly
kind of
is just an extra source of revenue for your family.
And it's been so great. We just had our driveway redone, and we have wanted that forever. We found a really great guy to work with a great price, but we redid the old, and our driveway is very, very long because we set far back from the road, and we're able to double it basically to where now, with all these random people that live in your property, they all have a space in our driveway. They're no longer on the road,
Nice.
which our neighbors appreciate. And we're
Good.
able to, we use the money from savings, but we're able to put it back with the money we're getting from the guest house. And so it's just really a breath of fresh air to be able to do some of these projects that we've wanted to do. And the driveway cost 11,000-ish. And so that was actually a really good deal, but that's a big chunk of money that we wouldn't have been able to justify had we not had that stream of income from the guest house to cover that cost. So we're excited. Eventually, we have other dreams. The next dream is to maybe put a tiny home on a trailer back there, because technically with the laws the way they are, you can do that and it doesn't affect your property taxes. But eventually, like, thinking about our kids when they're older and going to college, they could maybe live in the tiny home or in the guest house, and just as an opportunity for them to be able to live free and kind of have more freedom, but yet save, because the cost of living has really increased in Fort Worth in the last few years. And so just having
everywhere,
options.
my goodness. Right.
And everywhere. So, and everybody's always going to need a place to stay. And we do, I feel like we give our guest house a pretty good price for compared to what you can pay in other surrounding neighborhoods. And I like that it still blesses us, but we're not, I feel like we're not overpricing, so people can still afford to live.
It's still beneficial to someone else too.
Yeah. So
that's smart to keep that balance. I think this is a great opportunity to transition to the section we call Furnished Finder Favorites. So your landlord profile, you do a great job getting 5-star reviews. And when you look through Furnished Finder, that seems to not always be the case. There's a lot of landlords that just don't embrace reviews. And so their properties are great, but they're, if someone's nervous about it being a new property, they have nothing to go by because there are 0 reviews. So how can you encourage other landlords with your process? How do you take the Furnish Finder marketing and make sure they give you a good review?
Well, I try to make sure they have a really great experience. And we tell them when they move in, we do set the expectations. So there's a little bit of the caveat with they have to use a particular cleaner and, particular laundry. So there's kind of that aspect to it. So that's a little bit, tricky of of an obstacle to kind of work through so that they don't feel frustration. And it's all about expectation setting.
Mm-hmm.
But
so you still have some
so
limitations out there, but not to the extreme as inside your house. Is that correct?
That's right. We do ask that they not use
Okay.
perfumes, because perfumes really, and body sprays really can seep into the walls and take a while to get out. They have to use either My Laundry soap or an approved alternative. So,
Okay.
which is really not that, like, as long as it doesn't stink up my backyard, I'm okay. You know, like free and clear,
Right.
tight.
Right.
And then, you know, little things like when the last people moved out, she knew how I am with, you know, chemicals. And so she passed by me like what she could use to clean the sofa. And I really
Oh, that's
appreciated
good.
that. So the point being, setting up expectations. I really try to make my my listing super, almost overboard detailed, so that they know exactly what to expect when they move in. They know exactly every
Mhm.
single kitchen item they could possibly, you know, need. I have.
Right.
So from the very start, setting up with a positive experience and letting them know, like, if there is anything that goes wrong, I want you to tell me. Like, I don't want to
Right.
wait until you move out to find out. And so it just gives us a chance to correct mistakes, to fix things. You know, we've had an ant problem recently, and we had it sprayed a couple weeks ago. And apparently it takes time for the ants to come out of hiding and to die. It was an organic, so maybe it was a little less potent than chemicals. But anyway, that was something to communicate to the guy that just moved in, like, hey, we're battling ants. Should be getting better. We just had it sprayed. Please let me know if it continues. And then we try to really keep just a relationship with the people. And this is different based on, you know, the guy that moved in, he's a single guy. He's probably not looking to become best friends with us, but just to kind of keep that relational connection, so that at the very end, I know that they've had a good experience. I have that relationship to where I can be like, hey, do you mind taking some time to fill out the review? So relationship covers over a multitude of wrong, you know, ills or whatever. And I do feel a little like I'm inconveniencing them to leave a review. It is an extra step in their busy life. And it's usually right after they've moved out. So they're in a transition period where that's like the last thing they want to do. And so just really having that relationship strong enough, knowing that they've had a good experience, or if they haven't, we fixed it, has really helped me be more bold to ask for reviews, and people have been more than happy to
Good.
leave. So
Love it. And when you actually ask them to leave the review, do you use from the Furnish Finder landlord tools? Do you send it from there, or do you just send the listing and ask them to leave a review from the listing? Where do you actually go to send it?
I thought there was only one way to do a review. So I type in their email address into the tool, and then I guess they get an email. I don't know what happens from there, but it seems working.
Yep. Sounds like you go to your landlord tools and use the steps. That's perfect. So there it is, guys. That's how you get 5-star reviews every time.
Use the tool.
All right. So talk to us about what your most valued Furnish Finder or Key Check feature has been for you so far with renting out the back house. What has given you the most benefit or has been the easiest to use for you?
I really love the new tools you guys have added in the last few months. Maybe it was, I don't know when it happened. I just noticed it a few months ago. It keeps up with who's paid deposit, have they paid the deposit, how much the deposit was, when they moved in.
Right.
That is, for being such a left brain person, I have really had a hard time keeping myself organized with all of that. and I am really excited about those tools to keep me knowing how much, because they pay their deposit. You know, some of these people are staying for a year. Like, I have
Right,
long since
right,
forgotten paid in deposit, and so it's really helpful to be
right.
able to go back
Mm-hmm.
and to remember what the amount was and if they paid it. And
Good. That's great.
whatever.
That's one we
So
actually haven't heard yet so far. So that's actually good to know. Our goal is so that landlords really do have the full gamut of tools that they can use, because we know that juggling everything with being a landlord is not an easy task.
I really like it, and I like that even though I do also want to say I love and appreciate that your fee is so amazing. Like, it's really fantastic value for what we pay. Um, and we pay that, I guess, once a year, and we have,
Once a year.
it's been tempting once a year, like move over Airbnb, furnished finders coming through.
Right?
But, for real. But
And when
with,
I
we have,
hear the amount of fees on other sites, it's unbelievable sometimes. I mean, even like when we're looking to go on a
Mm-hmm.
trip and I'm like, I need something short. So I'll look on, I'm like, oh my
yeah.
gosh, I can't.
And I've had friends who are looking for a place, and usually they look at Airbnb, and I'm like, guys, go look on Furnished Finder. There's a lot of really great places. You're not going to pay the fee, and because the
Yep.
host doesn't pay the fee, they're able to, give you a great deal. It really is. I'm
Right.
excited and hoping that more people find out about you guys, and I'm doing my part.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yes, we do. And just for everyone that's listening, the tool that Amanda is referring to is tenant tracking. So if you are looking to really organize your landlord just stays, like when did they move in? When did they move out? Did they pay this deposit? How much was that deposit? That's tenant tracking. And I will tell you, I just had to we're thinking about selling one of our properties, and is that what well, whatever, I can't remember what the situation was, but I had to go back and figure out when people were moving in and when people were moving out, and I had the hardest time going back and figuring it out. The move in was obvious because that's in the lease, but the move out, because we offer month to month after their set time finishes, then the ending to the lease is not in there. So I figured out that currently I only track that through text messages, and text
Oh,
messages don't last for that long.
yeah.
I can find them up to a year, but past
Yeah.
a year I was like, where is the
Oh
details?
my gosh. You
So
sound like
it's
me.
important to yeah.
Mm.
So the tenant tracking is actually a really good tool, and when you go to um, update your calendar, Furnish Finder reminds you, hey, do you want to update tenant tracking?
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to push no, but I encourage you to push yes. And I need to push yes more often. So that's good advice, Amanda. Let's see. I think the last question I want to ask is from our intro call. I really loved how much you dive into people's personalities, and you put together this questionnaire. And can you just kind of go over that questionnaire that you put together to help you decide which tenants are a good fit for your family and which aren't? I really loved it.
Thank you. And yes, this is definitely much more for the people who live in our house, but I've learned a lot about personality, personality colors and Enneagram and, all these things. And it's just a tool to figure out, to understand yourself and understand who you work well with and who you don't work as well with. And I've learned that
Mm-hmm.
I created the Enneagram is amazing. It's a little complicated for this purpose, so I went more with the color personalities. Have you heard of like the four colors is blue, red, yellow, and green? And I tend
Okay.
to be a green red, which is green is super detail oriented, organized, can be a stick in the mud with flexibility, and I've grown a little more in that area, but I had my way. I'm not super interested in, branching a whole bunch. And then the red is kind of the fiery, go get it. On the negative side, they're the ones that could not care who they have to step on to go get their goal. That's obviously there's different levels of healthiness with all of these personalities, but the CEO, the go-getter, that kind of, I tend to be in those colors. And so I've figured out that it's not a good thing for me to live with myself, because I think it would be not and in fact, we used to have a rental, our first house in the neighborhood. We rented it out for a while, for several years, and I was in charge of that. And the lady who lived there for a few years, she was similar to me, and boy, we had so many unpleasant interactions. It was very, very stressful, and we didn't even live together. And finally, I was like, Adam, the husbands are taking over because we're gonna kill each other. So I've learned
because y'all are too much alike.
Way too much alike, man, way too much. So the other personality is blue and yellow. So blue is stereotypically the outgoing, life of the party, the jokester. They love adventure. They, super flexible because it's an adventure to roll with it. And tend to be more extroverted. The yellow is kind of the save the earth, kind of, who you might imagine would be a hippie, just very go with the flow. They very compassionate, incredible amounts of empathy, very, just that's kind of the stereotype for them. And so I've learned that I need to have guests that tend to be in these categories, the blue, the yellow, who kind of more on the introverted side of the yellow than the blue, but they tend to be, flexible. They tend to be like they put relationships over goals. And I've grown a lot in this area, but I tend to really value goals, which is something I'm working on. But I really need someone strong in that area, that they, who cares what laundry detergent I'm going to use, because I'm just glad to be here, and so figuring out, being able to identify who they are through the face-to-face that I have, I can kind of generally get an idea through that. But then I decided to add it to my application when they apply, just like it's the very cursory, it's free, like they just fill it out so I can get to know them a little bit. And that's one of the questions I ask is I've summarized each personality color to where they can identify which one they identify most with. And sometimes they do all four, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe you're very balanced, and we'll see how I feel. Right. But in general, I tend to navigate towards people who fill out, the blue and the yellow personality tendencies. And that's what I've done, and it's worked really well. And I will say, though, I think the third or the second lady tended to be a little bit more on the red side. And she and I, that was the weaker link of the four relationships. Like, I feel like we didn't have as much of the friendship kind of feeling as the other three, and she didn't play as many games with us, and she really kind of had her own life she was living, and it was fine. It was great, but it was kind of interesting to see how that played out a little bit more versus the other three that we've had are very high on the relational scale. They love kids. They would play games with us a whole bunch, and just they didn't mind Summer, who thinks they live here forever, which is super sweet. But anyway, so that's been a really helpful tool for us to kind of avoid a disaster.
I love it so much. And while we're talking, I cheated. I went ahead and pulled up some tabs. Um, and so I'm on Amanda's Furnish Finder profile. So, quick little trick for anyone that if you're listening to these podcasts and you happen to catch the first name and the last name, you can often get to their landlord profile page just by putting their first name, Amanda dot Coleman, at the end of any Furnish Finder profile page. So let's say I went to my own favorites or my own profile page, and I would switch Kelly over to Amanda.Coleman, and you can see her page, her listing, and then she has in her listing that questionnaire if you want to see it, and that whole color combo that she is describing is summed up in 4 questions. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you want to see it, go to her application on her listing,
Very cool.
and it's pretty cool. So Katie, what would you anything last things you'd like to say to wrap it up?
I don't think so. It's been so great to talk to you and so interesting. And your property is beautiful. I had time to check out the listing, and you guys did such an amazing job. And we just love to hear stories about, you know, how people are using their own property, you know, the house you live in, or an additional unit, or even investment properties to, you know, reach these goals and fulfill these dreams. And I think it's so amazing to hear stories, particularly like yours, where, you know, you're not out there buying $1 million properties. You're really doing this from the ground up, and working as a team with your family. And just to see, to hear you talk about going from idea to, okay, how do I make that happen? And then seeing it come to life, and you've already paid off the mortgage. Like, I mean, I think if that doesn't make it feel attainable to, you know, Jane and John down the street, like, I genuinely don't know what does. So, thank you so much for your time and all of your information. It was so great. And yeah, I can't wait for everyone to see your property, and I don't think you'll ever have a problem renting it out ever, because it's so beautiful.
Thank
It
you.
is.
We love it. We'd like to live out there, but we'd have
Right?
Well, thanks so much, Amanda. See you later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
you.